Hey guys, Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and this is episode number 14. And again, I spoke to Charley Valher from Outsourcing Angels, and we dug really deep on how much starting an online business really costs. And for anybody thinking about trying to make money online, whether you start your own online business or want to go away and buy your own online business, this is a very valuable episode where we dig into the real and raw costs of not just how much it costs you financially, but how much it costs you in education and time-wise to start an online business. And we weigh up if it's worth starting an online business, trying to be non-biased, as opposed to buying an online business, and how much quickly can we get the returns back from either, and what our returns would be over the long term. So very valuable episode for anybody wanting to make money online. Check this one out. Hey guys, and welcome to the podcast. Today I am again with Mr. Charley Valher from Outsourcing Angels, who, as usual, is crushing it over at Outsourcing Angels. And he's just been telling me a few things about the company and how awesome they deal with some things. And it's really good coming into our podcast today because it's about how to deal with things that happen when we first start our business and how much it really costs to start an online business or start a business in general. So Charley, welcome to the show and thanks for coming on again.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you for the kind words. And just, we won't leave the listeners hanging. We're talking about how to deal with change and challenges in business and just how that's changed over the journey. But I'm far more excited to talk about how much starting an online business really costs, because this is a juicy one.
It is. And let's start off with something juicy straight off the bat, Charley, because you've said something to me just before the show, and I really want to dig into this story of your first business and what it actually cost you. So I know you got a story around it, and I haven't yet heard it, everybody, so I'm pretty excited to hear it. So, and then I can tell you a little bit about mine and what things have cost me and stuff like that. So Charley, tell us, please, what happened here? How did you, what did this sort of first business really cost you?
All right, so I'm going to start with the juice, and then I'm going to give you the story. So essentially, my first business in my first year, I lost $50,000. So
Whoa.
That is, hook, line, and sinker on that one.
That's very juicy.
It is. And I'll go back now and I'll explain how I lost that and why I lost that. So I've told my story a little bit on this podcast before, so I'll skim through for the people that have heard it before. But essentially is I was a plumber and I'd saved up some money so that I could start my own business. So on the side, putting money away week after week, and I created a nice little nest egg so that I could go into business and, sleep at night, not be worried about how I could pay my bills. Now, I got into business, and one of the things I was just so unaware of was just how expensive it was going to be to set up a business, how many skills or what type of skills to develop. I was just, as the saying goes, I just didn't know what I didn't know and was charging forward into that. Now, I made a heap of mistakes and just had to do so much figuring out. So I was trying and failing at things and tweaking and editing. So I was going through this repeated process of trying an idea. If it worked, keep doing it. If it doesn't, change it, keep doing it. And if you're new in business, that's a very, very expensive way to do things. But I just didn't know any better. I was just this is what everyone does. You just kind of figure it out. So it's all right, what's the internet? Cool, I like the internet. What's a website? Great, want one of them. What's hosting? Oh, cool, we'll try this host. Oh, they're terrible. Go on to the next one. It was this massive cycle of just trying to work things out one after the other.
And that cycle can go, I noticed for me, it went for a while for me.
It certainly can. And I think most people, if they're being honest with themselves, this is what they go through in general. There's a really steep learning curve when it comes to starting your own online business, especially if you're someone like me, because it was I didn't have any friends in business. My dad wasn't a business owner or a relative or anything. I just had this calling to it. So it was for myself. It wasn't, handed to me or with a network or anything like that or a university degree. It was just, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Ground zero.
Ground zero.
So how did you go into that? all that money, like what were some of the things that, what were some of the costs that you had? Because I know a lot of people are under the perception, and this is the crazy thing about social media and the online space, that everybody has this assumption because everybody is sort of starting your own business online is super quick, cheap, simple, and easy. And I know that, like you said, you're like, okay, cool. What's this internet thing? You got to get it. And then you're like, all right, cool. What hosting? Okay, what type of hosting are you going to use? And you pay for this hosting and it's crap. And then you got to pay for a better one. And then you've got all these other sort of expenses. People think, oh, just start a website. And yeah, you can just start a website, and that is pretty cheap. But if you start something cheap, it's going to be just that, right? It's going to be a cheap business. You've got branding, you've got marketing, you've got SEO, you've got conversion rate optimizations, depending on, what you got. The list can just go on, can't it, Charlie?
And it's endless because there's new things coming out and things are changing. You might learn something and then a year later it's obsolete. You've got to update.
So what were some of the things that you learned or that, cost you that weren't the best sort of return when first starting out, so people can kind of learn that it's not just simple to just pay the money and it's going to be okay?
Ooh, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. So I'll give some more juice here because I think it's important. Is like the business I had was a marketing agency. Okay. Now, the reason I picked a marketing agency was that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And the one thing I was certain of is that if you could help other businesses get more clients, you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the logic. Was like, sweet. If I could just work out how to get leads on the internet for businesses, it'll be all right. So the first thing I had to invest in was the skill of learning how to do that. So it's not like with no skills, you can just go and sell that to people. So the first investment I had to make was in education.
Yeah.
I had to actually buy courses, get mentors. And this was a huge mistake, was like, I didn't have a process or idea for how to filter information. So one of the mentors I got, who was quite expensive and was very successful, he didn't necessarily have the experience in what I was doing. And I was taking his advice and like actioning it, but just like really struggling. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, I'm doing exactly what this guy said. And like, it wasn't like he was intentionally feeding me bad information, but at the same time, he didn't have the know-how to get through to what I was doing. So number one was like investing in the wrong mentors and having a trial and error approach with like courses and trainings and stuff. And that was a very, very expensive cycle for me.
Wow, that's just so good, because I didn't perceive that this one was going to come up, is that you can hire the wrong person or you can learn the wrong thing online and it can cost you in droves. And I think that's the case for me, is I bought into an idea with my first type of business that it was going to be great and I was going to live the lifestyle, I could make this money, and it's just without that education, or my perception as well, is kind of what altered it or allowed me to fail. That that miseducation and my perception on that miseducation is a massive one. I didn't even think about that one.
Huge. In all honesty, this one cost me about 6 months because like I was paying this guy, taking his advice, trying to action it, and all the data and anything I was getting back was, this isn't working. This isn't working. So emotionally, that actually left me a bit beaten as well. Like I was feeling a bit like a failure, in all honesty, because I'm pouring money into these ideas to develop these skills and then not necessarily having it pay off. And then this is where Charlie is a genius idiot at the same time. I had this idea, right, that was like, sweet, this guy's going to give me strategies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some clients, let them know that I'm learning some ideas, and if it works, they pay. And if it doesn't work, I'll refund them. So as I was getting these strategies that weren't working for me necessarily, I was having to refund clients at the same time. So I was copying this like double hit.
Ouch.
Yeah, well, we'll call it a good learning experience because in theory, it seemed like a good idea. But that's number one. I want to dig into number two now. So this is the other interesting one, is like overwhelmingly, right? We've probably all heard this saying, like, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And I believe that is so true. I mean, even how we met Jared is just through network.
Exactly.
Totally. And it's like, network and communities like your community, they're so, so valuable. So the next thing I had to invest in was a network because, as I mentioned earlier, is like I didn't know anyone. And as much as it was fun having my wife, just blindlessly say whatever I was doing was awesome and good on me. But, we all need a cheer squad, don't get me wrong.
We do. We need that support for sure.
I think she's worn thin. Not worn thin, but she's much more critical of me now, which is a good thing. She's gotten a little bit smarter, and she might comment and say, didn't you try that before? Are you sure this is the thing you should be doing? So I'll give her credit, the old B. She's a champion, my wife. But
is.
At the time, neither of us had a lot of business experience. I should mention is my partner B, or my wife B, has a successful CFO and bookkeeping business. So now, she's a business owner as well, and very, very granted to have an opinion because she's in the trenches and doing a lot of stuff in business. But back to my point is, much as I mentioned in the first comment, in my second one here is who you hang out with and who you have relationships in business with can make all the difference. And once again, is I had to find people and pay to be a part of mastermind groups or communities with people that I wanted to be like, so that I had, a joint venture network, people to bounce ideas off, be able to see over other people's shoulder and look at what was working and not working.
That's such a big one, is that network. I know when people want to jump on board with us in our community, the biggest thing that I mention to them is that, your network is your network is your net worth, of course. But for me, I've learned through some programs and communities and stuff that I've joined, I've made more money and had far more success from the network than I perceived I would, than the actual program or the education I was actually supposed to get from the actual group or the community or the program or the course or whatever it is. And where, made so many great friends and people had come to work for me. We've done stuff together, and it's just, it's so vital. I think working, and this is the misconception a lot of people think, is we need to be self-made millionaires and, we can do it on our own, all this sort of crazy stuff. But there's no such thing as a self-made millionaire when you've read a book or you've listened to a podcast or whatever it is. And I've said this before, but, working together is just, if you don't do it, you're just crazy, I think.
I completely agree. And it's, I vote with my wallet. This is how I look at it. And this isn't something I necessarily wanted to bring up, but it's each year I would spend more than 50 grand a year on mentors, education through courses and communities.
Yeah.
And that's not because I want to, it's because it's essential.
It's
a must.
It is. So that's point number two. So we've got miseducation, which means if you get into the wrong community or you learn something from people that, haven't got the skills, that can be a massive cost. And then it costs you also in time and success, I think, by not being in a network, really. Because you've got people that have been there, or you can leverage off, experience from people that have actually done it and are not just one mentor, but you've got many in the group.
Absolutely. So essential.
So for me, I know that when I first started my first business, and I was my story is, guys, if you don't already know, and Charlie, if you don't already know, I was living in Egypt and I had quit my job, and I was I'm not going to go home a bum anymore. I'm not going to go back to plumbing anymore. And I jumped online. I literally typed into Google how to travel the world and make money online.
Perfect search. You did it. Perfect search. Google wins.
Yeah, good. And it was great. There's so many things that popped up, but the main thing that was pretty prominent then was travel bloggers. And I was like, that's it. That is me. I get to travel. I get to make money. People are going to pay me to live my lifestyle. And I jumped in, I started doing it, and I did it time. I did it for so long. And I even came home, and I was still a plumber, and I'd come home and I'd sit on the computer for hours after work. And I made next to nothing with this blog. I made some money, but it wasn't a whole lot of money. It wasn't enough to sustain the life that I wanted. So I got that miseducation from Google and all these other people that were travel bloggers and looked like they were killing it, but they actually weren't. And I sold myself into that. And yeah, what that cost me was like years, like I'm talking years of time working on something that wasn't going to work. And that's a huge that you can always make more money, Charlie, but you can't make more time.
Oh, Jared, well, I couldn't agree more with that. And this is actually my point 3. I put down some points after you told me this topic.
Sorry, I ran ahead of time with you.
No, like you jumped in at the perfect time, and like we've just synergized. Anyone would swear we planned this with how this is going to go. But it's like my point 3, and this was like probably, the first 2 are very important and essential, especially to a new business owner. But I think what people like underestimate is like how long it can take to work out a business model and what to sell and how to price it, and the process of chasing bad ideas and how long you invest in an idea before you tweak it or pivot is severely, severely underappreciated.
Yeah. It can take people so long to work out just a like for me, we can bring up a business model in such a short time. And I speak to so many people with different businesses and my network of, I could just think like change a business model in the click of a finger now. But when I first started, I didn't know what a business model was. I didn't know how to create one. I didn't know, what was involved. I didn't know what sort of business models were possible.
Can I tell a funny story here?
Yeah.
I just want people to appreciate this. And like, when I make comments about like, I would never start a business from scratch, I would always buy one or partner with someone or like, something that has a head start. This is why. This is like, coming back to this, you'll really appreciate it. So I'm flashing back to this story. So it's like, all right, got through that first hurdles or worked out I wanted to do a marketing agency. Got awesome. Then we spent 6 months trying to build websites, realizing we're terrible at this and we hate it. And then, even though we did make a little bit of money, websites is a very hard business and very, very like, I don't know, it's like everything's subjective because it's like, does the client like the website? Does it work? Anyway, so after this, we decided, right, we're going to get into Facebook ads and Google ads. And we get into this stuff, we're really enjoying it. And I go out and I'm like, started selling marketing retainers. So I'm like, okay, cool. You want to sign up? We'll do Facebook ads for $500 a month. And that was fine when I was doing the work. But as I scaled and hired staff and I was paying other people to do the work, it was costing more than $500 to do the work.
That's cheap.
Dude, I just didn't know.
That's so cheap.
Yeah, well, first off, it was easier back then. It's much harder now, which is why it is much more expensive. But it's like we scaled a business and then we had a whole section of clients that I was actually paying them. It was costing me money per month to service them.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, you idiot. You idiot.
Such a good business model, Charlie.
Thank you. One of my final ones. Jared, I feel like I come from a place of knowing what not to do from experience. This tends to be the approach. I've gotten better at this now and listening to other people, but a lot of the time I was just winging it, and very expensive, very costly, very slow way to grow and get good at business.
Yeah. Another thing is that I've learnt when trying to grow a business is I've spent like tens, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, to be honest, on people that or companies that have not really performed, and they look like they can perform and they sound like they can perform, and you're like, yes, this is great. These guys and you do your research and you're just like, all right, this is this person over this person, or this person over these couple of people. And it can sometimes not work, and even if it's, they could work for so many different other businesses, but, every now and then the figures are that sometimes they're not going to be absolutely perfect for absolutely everybody, and you could be the odd one out.
Totally.
It happens. Yeah. So that's cost me is decision making. Really, is something to be very cautious of.
Absolutely. And I think this. I've come to appreciate your thinking, and I'll say that you've had a big influence on me from looking at buying established businesses or websites, because I think that, in the past I've probably gone, I can just start one from scratch. And it's when you really think about it is you look at how much of an advantage it is to buy a working business model or to buy a working business. It's just a huge advantage and it's such a skill set.
It is a skill set, but when you learn the skill set, you can use it again and again and again, and you just get better. And then starting a business is just so far behind you. And what I look at, Charlie, is I'm like, who's the richest people in the world, and how do they get so rich? If I look at Warren Buffett, it's like, I can't remember. He probably doesn't even remember the last time he started a company. All he does is buys businesses with the teams, with the everything, and they go away and he puts a few bits of words of advice in. Obviously, he is a multi-billionaire, so he knows a few things, but he buys businesses.
Because even Berkshire Hathaway was originally another company.
Oh, well, there you go.
It was a manufacturing brand once upon a time. Anyway, you can dig into his story from there. But I want to ask you a question, Jared. I've got a question for you here. Being real, okay, so we often look at sites like Flipper or Empire Flippers or many of the great brokers out there. There's a lot of good ones out there, or marketplaces, right? And we look at, sites, and I want to get your an opinion here. I won't hold you to this. But when you see sites on there now and you probably think about recreating them yourself, what do you think the cost would be to start a site and get it up and running these days? Because I think people perceive that, you can start a site yourself and just invest your time and somehow you're going to get it to this level reasonably quick. What's the true investment of time and money for a beginner to, let's say, get up to a site that might be making a couple of $1,000s a month?
Well, in 2019, back in the day, it may have been, just a whole lot of time. But if you wanted to really be successful, you still would have put money in. But that's a great question. And to come and to be real and come to think about it, let's just do a napkin sort of analysis. If I'm going to go start an affiliate
content site.
Content site, right? An affiliate business. So content for affiliate commissions or articles, just with blog, sponsored posts and all the advertising and stuff. I'm going to go away. I'm going to buy the domain, and I probably want a pretty good domain, right? So I could pay anywhere from $15 to, let's just say, $100. I mean,
jeez, I don't know, man. I reckon it's more than that. I'll pull you out right. Unless if you want to go with a top tier level domain, I reckon you're up for a couple of grand these days. If you want a .com,
yeah. If you want a really good one in this very specific niche, let's just put 2K, right?
All right.
So we got 2K there for a domain, and then we want a website. Now I've been to branding agents and stuff like that, and I've spoken to people and. Actually had a website rebranded, and it can cost minimum 20 grand. If you get somebody that's really just starting out, maybe 15K for a pretty good website and then branding. Branding's another probably. Well, it depends on how big you want this business to be, but people pay millions of dollars for branding. But let's just say you may spend. I'd probably spend about another 20K on branding, I think. So we're up to about 42. And then I'd probably want to get the website some really good content on there. Let's say I want to get 6 months of content written and it's SEO friendly, and those SEO people and content writers optimize the site. So let's just base it off maybe $2,000 a month for, let's say, 3 articles, 2 or 3. So 2 sixes is 18. So what, we've got 60K there. And then that's what 3 sixes is. You don't have a whole lot of articles there. And then you've still got to wait in the time for it to get ranked in Google. So it can take up to 12 months to start seeing a decent amount of traffic there. And what else?
I'm so curious.
Posting.
You're getting closer to the number. So I did this exercise before, by the way. So I'm just curious as like what you roughed
How
it out
close I
of.
get.
Yeah,
So
very curious.
I'm literally just doing this off the top of the head on the podcast right now. So I'm thinking maybe hosting, let's say for a decent hosting, say 100. Let's just say 1,500. Let's say depends on how. You probably want a really good one. So we'll go 2K for hosting per year. So what do we got? We got the domain, we got the website, we got the brand, we got some articles. It's SEO. And say you want somebody to put that content out there, so you might hire a social media marketing manager. So that might be, let's say you're going to outsource it and you did really well and you found somebody that was really good and you trained them up over, 3 months type deal. That might cost you $1,000 per month. So let's put 12K there. So then you've got your content, it's getting shared as well. You've got everything set up and you're not making money here. So what have we got? We got 20, 40, 60, 70, 74. So about 75K.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And that's
and how
that's
much
for
time?
decent
How long?
quality. For me, as I'm going to start it out. Well, let's say I've got to pick between maybe 5 people for branding, and that might take me. I'm pretty quick at making decisions, guys. So, and Charlie can vouch for that. But I'd probably want to make a really good decision over. Let's just put a month there. I'm going to have to train somebody up for 3 months to do the social media, and then I'm going to have to maybe spend 2 weeks for finding a really good content writer. So what have we got? 4.5 months. I would probably say 6 months of my time, and then another 6 months of the team's time to get it to a 75K business. And then after the 18th month mark, I'd want to be making, and this is the hard thing to really calculate if you're going to start one, but say 75K, I'd probably want to be making about 20K a year. So, or 20 to 25K a year. So probably I'd want to be making about 2K a month from that sort of business in the 18th months to the 24-month range. And I think that would be just average and fair. What do you think?
I think it's reasonable. There's some interesting things you've said, because it's obviously this is opinion. There's no wrong answer. And it's I'll give you an example with branding, is you could have said, I'm just going to go onto Fiverr or whatever designer market, or just use, some logo maker online. That's
exactly what I would have done maybe 4 years ago.
Isn't that interesting as well? Because we have similar things here. There is options to go, how is the cheapest I do this? And I think you can significantly do it for less if you're going to go with all the cheapest options. But, and I use this with a heavy but, is a year into your project, when you're then redoing things, it ends up more expensive. So that Fiverr logo, let's say you spend $1,000 on your branding and logos and get it all sized and social media pages and whatnot, go the cheap end. In a year's time, you'll find that you probably spend a lot of money on graphic designers and new logos. There's a lot of rework.
Yeah.
So it's
Sorry, you go.
it's there's a lot of that comes into it.
Isn't that crazy that it's not just costing? So the way I see it, what you said is, yes, it's definitely, no doubt about it, going to cost you more money because you're paying for things twice, and you're going to pay premium a second time anyway. So that first time, it's kind of like, waste the money, and you've also wasted your time. The way I look at it is that, hey, do you want to set yourself up for success, or do you want to set yourself up for failure? Because if you do it the cheap option the first way, it's inevitable that you may it's highly likely that you're going to set yourself up for failure, meaning you're going to have to do what you just said, Charlie, is get it done again anyway by a professional. Rather, if you set yourself up from success from the start, then you're not going to have to run into these issues later, and all the hard work's done. Like, it's like building anything, you want to really build some great solid foundations. Are you going to go away and get the really cheap Rio bars and the really cheap concrete that's going to last maybe 5 years to build your house on, and not really compact the dirt below it before you actually pour the slab? Like, you can go away and get all these things done real cheap, but you could see that there was different things that I could do. Like, I could spend 10K per month on a social media marketing manager, but I chose to go, maybe I'll spend 2K because I reckon the value, I can still get a lot of value for 2K from somebody that I train up.
Interesting. It's fun. It's funny. There's a story I use in my house that you bring that up. So when I was 16, Jared, I played in bands. I played guitar in some bands. It was good fun.
Yeah.
And something happened along the way. Now, in guitar, right, your tone and your sound is so important and so individual. And there was this amp I wanted called the 5150. Okay. Now, the 5150 was an expensive amplifier. You got to remember, I'm 16. And it was $2,000. And I was like, I don't have $2,000. So what I did is I would buy the amp I could afford and attempt to modify and change it to be the 5150. Now, I spent, just to be clear, I got a 5150 in the end, but it's like,
Congratulations.
I spent like $2,000 on the crapper amps trying to modify them and make them a 5150, to then spend another $2,000 to get the 5150. So I paid double for my 5150.
Yes. So that's exactly what I was just saying before, right? And
totally. You just reminded me.
The real cost is not the money. Because that time, like I said before, you can always earn more money, but you can't earn more time. That time cost, the amount of time that you could have spent playing or practicing the guitar or practicing whatever your instrument you had, including vocals or whatever it is, could have given you a massive ROI on the practice you were doing rather than tinkering.
Absolutely. I will say this. The day I got my 5150, probably one of the happiest days in my life.
That's amazing.
There's these things in life that can't necessarily be explained, but there's a feeling that comes with them. So I'll give you an example. If you're a golfer, right, and you crush a ball off the tee, like you really smash one with your driver, all of the golfers will tell you there's a feeling that comes with it. If you're a surfer and you nail a wave, there's a feeling that comes with it. There's so many things that have these moments. That amp, when I played it, is like as soon as you hit it, the resonance, the sound, it was like vibrating joy through my body.
I would have felt like ecstasy every single time you played it.
Every single time.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I want to come back to this question though, because it's like, I'm just going to rough you in. You've kind of picked it out at about $75,000 over 12 to 18 months.
Yep.
As a roughie.
Rough, very rough. That was just literally, that's about it on the podcast. Just rough, super rough.
I went about this a little bit differently, right? And I thought about it of okay, if I was going to have the team and have them execute the work, so have a writer on team, a designer or a developer on team, and then how long I would expect from these guys starting from scratch, how long it would take to kind of meet neutral and then go into profitable. Okay, so I tackled it slightly differently, though. I thought of a lot of the same elements as you. But ultimately, my conclusion was that if you were going to start one of these web businesses from scratch, you'd want to be willing to invest 50 grand and 12 months. And if you couldn't go into it with the mindset of, I'm willing to drop 50 grand plus your own time, plus some team time, and not break back on that for 12 months, then that's about the cost. And I reckon that's about accurate for a lot of businesses online anyway.
That's a really good ballpark figure because you could do it under and you could do it well over. For me, I was very rough, and I think 75 is still a really good mark, but let's just put that into perspective for people. And before I do put this in perspective for everybody listening, is that I try my hardest not to be biased to just buying websites and buying online businesses. But the facts really show that it does work. And if you do want to go away and start a business because you're super passionate about it and it's like your lifelong dream, awesome, do it. Like you're going to learn so much and you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. But if it's something you've always wanted done, you don't want to get to the end of your time and go, oh, damn, I didn't get to do that. But if your goal is just to go, all right, I want a real lifestyle, and I want to not work, or I want to make money without having to do too much work, or I want to go down this track because it's going to give me so many more benefits, then that's what I find most people turn to the internet to make money to do. Then definitely buying a business is like, it's a smart option, because when you look at costing 50K, let's just say it's going to cost you, you go buy a business for 50K. Okay, and my calculator's not going to play ball with me. Oh, yep, here it is. So I need my calculator to do this. But if you have $50,000 and you buy a business, and it's roughly going to be making you about $16,600 per year, and that's divided by 3 years of its income, and you divide that by 12 months, it's roughly going to be making you about $1,380. So I ran it down to about $1,350 per month. So the question is, if you just wanted to make money online, would you rather spend 50K and wait 12 months to see some sort of return? Or would you rather spend 50K, like Charlie said, and get $1,350 the first month you invested it, and $1,350 each month after that without growing the business?
It's an interesting perspective, and I love the idea about remaining neutral. I really do, because there are circumstances when building a business makes sense. There really are. And passion is one of them. Or if the business you want to build doesn't exist, you might be building something new. And I've done it. I've started businesses, and there are circumstances when that does exist. On the other side of it, though, is like, if you're going into the online world and thinking about starting businesses from scratch because you perceive it's less risky or anything like that, I'm not sure that's true.
Well, yeah, I'm a strong believer in knowing it's not true, but it's somebody they see. Back when I wanted to make money, Charlie, the risk wasn't my time, because I was more focused on the money. If I put money up that I worked super hard for, because I really valued money over my time. And I think there's a certain level in your life where that starts to change a little bit. Totally. And it doesn't matter. I don't think it's just based on how much money you have or how much money you make. It's based on your paradigm or perception of the value of your time. And so for me, I was like, I'm going to, if I go away and start, I wasn't risking too much when I started my travel blog. The reality was that I risked 2 years of hardcore afternoons, evenings after work, trying to make this thing work. I'm talking 20 plus hours a week. So that to me, back then, it wasn't a risk. But now that I see that, it's a massive risk. And if I was where I'm at now, and I was went to that guy all those years ago, I'd be like, hey man, I'm not going to make that person do this, but I'll just say, here's some options here.
Definitely. I think one thing we've probably overlooked here is I totally agree with that, but it's there is certainly good skill development that came from it. So
Massive.
saying that, you could definitely develop skills in an existing business as well. But
Well, it's just fast-tracked in an existing business, isn't it?
absolutely. And I think we both have some, I don't want to say scarring, but like some experience of, I suppose, wasting so much time and money on things that didn't work and just appreciating what a shortcut it can be to lean into things that do work.
Yeah. And like you said, it wasn't all a total waste. There's definitely massive education from all those failures, but like everybody already knows, is like, why wouldn't you just learn from somebody else who's already made those failures, i.e. a business owner that can teach you to run it when you buy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and that's it for me, Charlie. I think we've gone real deep into this. Is there anything you want to add before we jump off and wrap up this episode on the raw costs of starting a business?
Well, I just hope we've had an impact on someone kind of thinking about this stuff. And I mean, whichever way you go, whether you start a business or buy one, at least, or hopefully you're more informed what you're really up for. So please, I hope this has been helpful.
Yeah, I agree too. I really do hope it's been helpful and valuable to understand like what your options are, and, you know, whatever you decide to do is going to be the right option anyway, if it's something that you're wholeheartedly know and content and conscious about that decision. So again, Charlie, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Guys, that's it for this episode. Charlie, where can everybody go away and find out more about you?
Well, there's a couple of places. So one, if people want to chat about this stuff, they should definitely go and join your community, Jared, because I'm in there. We're talking about businesses. It's really good fun. So if you want to come and chat to me, that's a great place. Other than that, head over to my website, charleyvalher.com. I'm sure Jared will put a link to it under this episode.
Sure will. So there'll be a link to that. And also, guys, buyingonlinebusiness.com/community is what Charlie just mentioned. As you know, network is your net worth. And yeah, so much fun. We love talking business, and that's why we do this. And for everybody who's listening, thank you so much for listening. Please go away and subscribe and like this. If you did like this episode or any other episode of the podcast, please be sure to go away and leave a review letting me know exactly what you like so I can keep bringing that to the show. Thanks again, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.